The billionaire's voice thundered through the restaurant. I don't pay thousands to be served like I'm in a student cafeteria. The room froze. Every diner stopped mid-bite. All eyes turned to the 24-year-old waitress standing, still holding nothing but a notepad. But the young waitress didn't flinch. She looked him straight in the eye and said just one calm sentence. That moment didn't just silence a room. It awakened something the billionaire had buried for decades.
Welcome to T&M Incredible Story. Let's uncover what really happened.
The rain hadn't let up since noon. Downtown Chicago pulsed beneath gray skies. Glass towers gleaming with cold reflections of red, brake lights and blurred umbrellas. Inside the Landmark Hotel, warmth battled the wet chill. Its signature restaurant, Landmark Grill, sat tucked just off the marble lobby, a quiet haven for high-profile guests. Shielded from the chaos outside, Veronica Grant, 24, stood in the employee hallway, adjusting her black vest and name tag. She checked the clock, 4:58 p.m., right on time. Her shoes were worn, the heels slightly scuffed from 2 years of nonstop shifts. Her dark brown hair was tied neatly back, tired eyes but alert. She breathed in, then pushed through the swinging door into the softly lit dining area. Landmark Grill wasn't just a restaurant. It was where corporate deals closed over steak, and senators whispered strategies over dessert. No phones on tables, no selfies, and certainly no mistakes. Veronica had learned to blend in like polished wood. Efficient, pleasant, invisible. She worked here 5 nights a week, balancing double shifts and online nursing classes. Her world ran on caffeine, Post-it notes, and quiet grit. That night felt like any other, until table 4 appeared on the tablet with a red tag. Private walk-in. Guest of hotel, security alert level 3. Her eyes narrowed. That meant VIP, possibly government, possibly press-sensitive. Within 5 minutes, the man was seated. No cameras. No fanfare. Just 2 men in dark suits at a nearby table, clearly not dining. Then she saw him. Carson Hail. Even without the entourage, his presence was unmistakable. Tall, silver-haired, and sharply dressed in a charcoal suit with a lapel pin. Most wouldn't recognize. A silent badge of power. He didn't look around. He didn't smile. Just opened the menu slowly and gave a small nod to the maître d' before settling into his seat like he owned the place. Veronica's stomach tightened, not because she was starstruck. She wasn't. She'd served celebrities before. But Carson Hail wasn't a celebrity, he was a force, a media titan, a man whose temper, when triggered, had ended careers and embarrassed more than one waiter publicly. There were entire Reddit threads about it. She took a breath and approached his table, notebook in hand, voice steady. Good evening, sir. I'm Veronica. I'll be taking care of you tonight. He didn't look up right away. When he did, his eyes were sharp, scanning her, assessing. Sparkling water. And New York strip. Medium rare, no sauce. Side salad, no onions, dry. Yes, sir, she replied. Any preference for wine this evening? He tapped the table twice. Surprise me. She nodded. Right away. Then turned on her heel, her heart beating just a little too fast. She slipped into the kitchen, handed off the order, and went straight to the sommelier. Guest at table 4, Carson Hail, she whispered. He asked for wine. Said, surprise me. The sommelier raised an eyebrow, but handed her a bottle of Brunello. Di Montalcino Riserva, Saptel. Expensive, aged like the man himself. Be careful with that one, he murmured. Veronica returned to the floor, the bottle cradled in both hands. Outside, rain lashed against the tall windows. Inside, chandeliers glowed. Everything gleamed. Everything moved in quiet, controlled rhythm. But something in the air had changed. Carson Hail wasn't just here to eat. And Veronica, tired, focused, holding her composure like armor, didn't yet know that by the end of the night, one sentence from her would shake this man more than any headline ever had. The wine was poured with grace, the salad served with precision. Carson Hail said nothing as Veronica moved around the table, attentive but discreet. She didn't hover. She didn't engage. She simply did her job. Well, he didn't smile. He didn't say thank you. But he didn't complain either. For a man known for tearing servers apart over lukewarm water, silence was almost reassuring. Back in the kitchen, the grill chef, a seasoned guy named Luis, turned to Veronica. You sure it was medium rare? She asked. Luis nodded. Internal temp 135, textbook, I double-checked it. Veronica gave him a thumbs up and headed out with the plate. The meat was perfectly charred, juices sealed in, the plate itself warm to the touch. She stepped lightly toward table 4, watching Carson from a distance. He was scrolling through something on his phone, probably not Instagram. "Your steak, sir," she said, gently placing the plate in front of him. "New York strip, medium rare." He didn't look up, just sliced into it, then paused, and everything changed. Carson Hail lifted the fork, examined the pink center, then let the utensil fall to the plate with a loud clink. "This is not medium rare." His voice wasn't loud at first, but it carried, sharp, irritated, unmistakable. Veronica blinked. "I'm very sorry, sir, I can—" But he cut her off. "I come to a hotel like this, I order a simple steak, and you bring me this?" Now he raised his voice. A couple at the next table looked up. One of the bodyguards at the bar shifted slightly in his seat. Carson leaned forward, tone biting. "I pay $1,500 a night to stay upstairs. And I can't even get a steak cooked properly? Is that where we are now?" Veronica stood still, not frozen, just grounded. She could feel the burn creeping into her cheeks. Her palms itched. Her breath slowed. Her first instinct was to apologize again and disappear, but she didn't move. Instead, she looked directly at him, not defiant, not aggressive, just steady. And she said calmly, "Sir, I treat every guest the same, whether they're ordering a burger or a bone-in ribeye. You're welcome to do the same." For a full second, maybe 2, no one breathed. The piano in the corner missed a note. A man in a booth stopped mid-bite. Even Carson blinked, not in rage, but in something closer to shock. Veronica didn't wait for his reply. She nodded slightly, picked up the plate, and turned away. No drama, no apology tour, no tears. Just a woman doing her job, and refusing to be humiliated for it. Back in the kitchen, Veronica placed the plate gently down on the pickup counter. Louise looked up, confused. "What happened?" "Guest wants it remade," she said, her voice even. "No blood." He didn't ask more. He saw the tension in her hands, the way she shook them once under the counter, then placed them behind her back. She didn't want pity, didn't want attention. She just wanted to finish her shift. Out on the floor, Carson Hail sat quietly. For once, he wasn't scrolling, wasn't dictating, wasn't dominating. He was remembering, and somewhere deep beneath decades of success, private jets, and cold boardrooms, something old and painful stirred. The restaurant resumed its rhythm. Glasses clinked. Silverware tapped. Conversations tiptoed back into the air like nothing had happened. But at table 4, Carson Hail sat unmoving. He stared at the empty space where the plate had been, elbows resting on the crisp linen cloth. Fingertips steepled beneath his chin, and for the first time in a very long time, he didn't feel powerful. He felt remembered. The memory hit hard and uninvited. Winter 1987, upstate New York. Carson was 20, college dropout, broke, working double shifts at a greasy diner, just off Route 9. He remembered the clatter of plates, the smell of burnt coffee and the ache in his feet. He remembered the night a man in a tailored overcoat sat at the corner booth. Carson had been nervous. The guy looked important. Probably a banker. He'd spilled a tray. A plate of mashed potatoes landed right on the man's lap. The man stood up, red-faced, and in front of the entire restaurant had shouted, "You can't even carry a damn plate? Is this the level of work they hire now?" Carson had stood frozen. He didn't speak. Didn't defend himself. Didn't even blink. He just stared down at the cracked tiles as the laughter followed him into the back kitchen. That moment, as small as it seemed, had carved something into him. It became the fuel behind his ambition, the fire behind every business deal, every acquisition, every cold decision he made for 30 years. Never again, he'd vowed, never again would he be humiliated, powerless, looked down upon. So he built himself into a man no one dared embarrass. He made sure the world remembered his name, even if it had to fear it. But tonight, he had become the man in the overcoat. And Veronica, she had become him, the kid in the diner, but braver. She didn't flinch. She didn't crumble. She looked him in the eye and told the truth. Not with malice, not for attention, just because it was the right thing to say. He let out a quiet exhale and reached for his water. It tasted metallic. He pushed it away. His bodyguards at the other table glanced over. One raised a brow, silently asking, "You okay, boss?" Carson didn't respond. His fingers tapped the table, slow and rhythmic, the way they used to tap on a notepad when he couldn't sleep. 15 minutes passed, and then she returned. Veronica approached with the same calm as before, holding the newly prepared steak cooked slightly more. "Here you go, sir," she said. "Medium." No sarcasm, no edge, just grace. She placed it gently in front of him and turned to leave. No eye contact. No expectation. Just professionalism, pure and clean. Carson stared at the plate, then stared at her name tag as she disappeared back into the kitchen. Veronica. He picked up his knife and fork and began to eat. Slowly, silently, and for the first time in decades, every bite tasted like a question. He didn't finish the steak. Not because it wasn't good, it was perfectly fine. But because something else was gnawing at him. Carson Hail, media tycoon, whose name had filled headlines and whose decisions moved markets, sat there with a strange heaviness pressing down on his chest. A quiet weight he couldn't explain, or maybe hadn't wanted to feel for a long time. He watched her from a distance now. Veronica. She wasn't performing for anyone. She wasn't flustered or flattered. She moved from table to table with quiet diligence, refilling a glass, clearing plates, kneeling briefly to help an elderly guest with her coat that had fallen to the floor. He saw the tiny details no one else did, the small tear in the side seam of her apron, the faint smear of pen ink on her palm, the way she placed an extra piece of warm bread on the edge of a side plate for the busboy, who looked far too young to be on a night shift. She didn't look his way again, not once. But he couldn't stop watching. He asked the maitre d' quietly before leaving. "That server, Veronica. What do you know about her?" The maitre d' was hesitant. Discretion was a must here. But Carson Hale's name opened doors and mouths. "She's been with us a little under 2 years, the maitre d' said. "Full-time. I believe she's also studying nursing at a city college. She works mornings somewhere else. A coffee shop downtown, I think. Sends money back to help her younger brother." Carson was quiet. No one could see what was happening in his mind. Because for the first time in ages, it wasn't business. It was memory. It was reflection. It was regret. Before leaving, he pulled a simple envelope from the inside pocket of his blazer. A personal stationery card tucked inside. No letterhead, no logo. He wrote her name across the front. Veronica Grant in sharp, deliberate penmanship. Inside was a cashier's check, not for $100, not a generous tip, $50,000. No note, no speech, no explanation. He placed the envelope flat on the table and stood. As he walked out of Landmark Grill, he didn't say goodbye, didn't ask for validation, didn't make a scene. He just nodded to the maitre d' and slipped back into the rain. 15 minutes later, Veronica returned to clear his table. The steak had barely been touched. Her eyes caught the envelope. Her name in careful ink. She paused. A frown, then hesitation. She looked around as if this were some kind of test. Like maybe it was meant for someone else. She opened it slowly, carefully, already bracing herself for a complaint. A handwritten letter? A legal threat? But instead, her breath caught. A check. $50,000, drawn from a private financial firm. She blinked, then blinked again. She ran her thumb along the paper. It was real, crisp, weighted, certified. Her hands shook as she leaned against the booth for balance. Louise peeked from the kitchen. "Everything okay?" Veronica swallowed. Her voice cracked. I don't know." That night, she didn't go straight home. She sat on a bench under the hotel awning, watching the rain, the check pressed against her chest inside. Her coat like a secret she wasn't sure how to carry. Across the street, a city bus rumbled by. Neon signs flickered in puddles. And for the first time in months, she let herself exhale. Not from exhaustion, but from relief. 2 weeks passed. Veronica kept the envelope in her top drawer at home, beneath a stack of nursing textbooks and overdue bills. She didn't spend a cent, not yet. Not until she was sure it wasn't some kind of mistake. She never spoke about it to anyone at work. She still worked both jobs, still packed her brother's lunches, still studied until 2 a.m., but something inside her had shifted. She walked a little taller. She breathed a little deeper. It wasn't the money that changed her. It was what it meant. Someone powerful had seen her, really seen her, and didn't look away. Then one Wednesday morning, while working her usual off-day shift at a small cafe near the university. The doorbell above the entrance jingled. She turned, wiping her hands on a towel, and froze. Carson Hail, not in a tailored suit this time. No entourage, no bodyguards, just a simple wool coat and a quiet, almost vulnerable expression. He walked toward the counter slowly, hands in his pockets. Veronica stood behind the register, unsure what to say. He spoke first. "I never got to thank you properly." She blinked, caught off guard. "For what?" Carson's voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "For reminding me that dignity doesn't come with a title. That sometimes the smallest voice in the room is the one that needs to be heard." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out another envelope, smaller than before. No check this time, just a letter. That evening, Veronica opened it at her kitchen table. Next to her sat a pile of crumpled napkins, 2 mugs of instant ramen, and her younger brother, fast asleep with a textbook under his cheek. She unfolded the page. "Dear Veronica, you didn't raise your voice. You didn't retaliate, but you told the truth. I've built an empire by owning the narrative. That night you reminded me I'd lost the plot. Today I started a new chapter, literally, a foundation. It's called the Veronica Grant Initiative. It will support women like you, those who give everything even when the world offers little in return. I hope you'll lead it. I can't think of anyone better. Carson." Veronica didn't cry right away. She just sat there, the letter trembling in her hands. The room silent except for the buzz of the old fridge. And then, finally, she smiled. Months later, the story quietly made national headlines. Billionaire launches new women's leadership foundation, names former waitress as founding director. They didn't know the full story. They didn't know about the stake, or the silence, or the first envelope. But Carson did. And every time someone asked why he picked her, why Veronica Grant, he'd give the same answer. Because when the whole room went quiet, she was the only one brave enough to speak.